updated every 3 years. The last one we produced in 2017, but didn't come out until 2018. And right now we're updating that national plan to focus on the needs for climate mitigation and adaptation. So we do a satellite needs assessment. We look at the needs of our U.S. users from the private sector to governments, local, state governments, and federal agencies, and determine what is most valuable. It's very methodical the way we do this, and quite an investment to update this national plan. We work closely with industry, and we have these industry dialogues, and try to place a lot of value on collaborating and supporting our U.S. industry, which is not uncommon with the UK and the EC and Canada. These industry collaborations, I think, have been really important. We have an innovation task team and land imaging architecture study. So when we plan the next Landsat, we just launched Landsat 9, and as we plan the next generation of satellites, Earth-observing satellites, we work together to plan it, in addition to coordinating with the coordinate amongst ourselves and then with our international partners. Next slide. So one of the things that we thought we would stress, and we gave this similar presentation at the AmeriGeo meeting in Paraguay in August, was the importance of the national GEOs strengthening the engagement and participating in GEO. So one agency alone, can't, at least in the United States and in most of Latin America and the Caribbean, cannot speak for the government effectively in terms of Earth observations and their use. So the National GEOs create this forum for agency collaboration. Ours is very formal with the federal law that creates our organization that consists of the 13 agencies. But we also feel that this national structure helps us respect existing policies and laws and regulations and mandates of all of the agencies across the U.S. government. We have training programs that we share so we don't duplicate what NASA is doing in terms of capacity development in the United States. And also we work together on our international partnerships, and a lot of those partnerships are through GEO. U.S. GEO agencies are involved in 20 of, we had 64 work program activities in GEO, and now they're slightly fewer. They're still there, but some have been merged. But we have a great presence and contribution to 20 of those 64 GEO activities. And we also work on GEO boards and working groups like the Climate Change Working Group, Disaster Risk Reduction Working Group that Rui works with, and others. And so we have been working on the right there. We just signed an MOU with Peru, Canada. And the principal from Peru is here. His name is General Garcia Morgan. And so if it were not for GEO, we wouldn't be doing these things. And if it were not for US GEO, I don't think we would have been as bold in our vision on sharing data and developing these collaborations with other countries. Next slide. So not only do national GEOs, if you have one, or if you have some sort of structure, not only do they strengthen GEO and benefit from GEO, but also the opportunities the way GEO is structured with your AfriGeo, for example, and in our region, AmeriGeo, is we have these very robust partnerships. On the left there, that is just a screenshot from our Inter-American Academy for Geosciences and Applications. And we've got webinars and trainings, many in Spanish, and some are live, and you can continue, you can stop and go back and continue training. There in the middle, we have just a photo, a snapshot of a meeting we had in Paraguay, or a AmeriGeo meeting in August, and we had indigenous peoples from across the Americas come together. Some of these people took 5 days to get to the AmeriGeo meeting. They will never be at a GEO meeting overseas. They paddled in canoes. Then they got on buses, to get there and get access to Earth observations that would help them detect forest theft, for example, and mining impacts on their lands. So it's very practical, this AmeriGeo for Indigenous peoples. And then we have about 500,000 data sets that we actually serve on our data platform. We support countries in mapathons. And in the GEO Pathways program that we're working with Peru and Colombia, we basically have helped them stand up a training program for students, undergraduate and graduate students in remote sensing and GIS. Next slide. The AmeriGeo meeting, we had 804 registrants, and you can see what they were interested in. Their thematic areas of interest: climate. Climate is one of those common themes of interest across the 21 countries that are members of AmeriGeo. Disasters, number 2. Agriculture, health. So these are the thematic areas of interest where you can drill down, and all the little dots there in North America and South America, that's where people came from that participated in our regional GEO meeting. And we had about 20 people from those 13 agencies that are members of US GEO. Next slide. So I'm ending with some challenges. We are an official committee of the White House, US GEO. It's just like the U.S. Global Change Research Program, which is a separate committee. So we have a lot of reporting that we have to do, and we have a mandate, but there's no funding. Okay, that's ring true. You have all these mandates and needs, but the money's not there, and so that's another reason that we set priorities, and that individual agencies bring to the table and voluntarily contribute people. We have a delegation here of about 20 people from the U.S. government agencies that come with funding from their agencies, but that can hinder collaboration, coordination, and achieving a vision of doing greater things together. While we have 13 agencies involved, not all come to the table. Some rarely show up, but that's okay. And when it becomes valuable to them, they have a seat at the table. So there's different levels of engagement, definitely across the 13 agencies. And the next slide is the final slide, I believe. So I meant to give you a picture of all of the logos of the 13 agencies, but many of them are here today, so I won't go through all those. But that's how we structure our US GEO. So it's been around longer than many others. I think that we've benefited from organizing ourselves in 2005, basically when GEO was formed to respond to the need. So Nancy, I'll turn it back to you. Yes, and Nancy and I co-chair the International Activities Working Group. So under US GEO, we have working groups, one with the industry task force, and then we have this international group that Nancy and I co-chair. And Angelica Gutierrez, if she's here. Thank you. Thanks, Virginia. Thank you, Nancy. In the spirit, Nancy, that you sort of alluded to at the beginning of being very honest, I think you'll find that that's what I'm going to do in this presentation, is share with you the experience of Canada in developing a national GEO. I think following Virginia's talk, I'm going to say that Canada is 10% the size in population to US. So we'll temper expectations there as well. You can go to the next slide. My name is Shan Kaya, and I'm the Director of Transformation, Innovation and Engineering at the Meteorological Service of Canada, which is part of Environment and Climate Change Canada. That's our federal Department of Environment. And what I'll do here is just go through the last sort of 4 years of what we've been doing in Canada around GEO, not ignoring the fact that we have been involved in GEO since the very beginning. So we had a GEO principal, Mr. David Grimes, who you may know. He was Assistant Deputy Minister of the Meteorological Service of Canada and also President of the World Meteorological Organization. And he was our Canada GEO principal for quite a long time, until his retirement a few years ago, where he handed it over to Mr. David Harper, who I thought might be in the room here today, but I don't think he could fit in
which means that I can say he's also my boss, so I can say whatever I want now. So David Harper is the GEO principal for Canada, took over in 2018, and what I'm going to share here is really what we've done in the last 4 years since David took over, because it really has been a huge shift. Really, when he started, and this is part of my being honest, Nancy, is when he started, he asked the question: is why is Canada involved in GEO? What is GEO? What do we get out of it? And it was not an easy question to answer. We had people who had been involved previously who kind of said it's, well, they didn't kind of said, they said it's an invitation to a party with a whole lot of people from around the world who all care about Earth observations and want to do good with it. But we didn't really understand how we generate value from that. So David really dug into that and looked at what he envisioned for GEO in Canada. We did not have a clear organization. We had people across our very geographically big country participating in GEO working groups and on GEO initiatives and activities. We did not have a good understanding or connection between all these people. So in 2019, David established the Canadian GEO Secretariat Office in the Meteorological Service of Canada. It's under my division. And it's one person right now. So any of you who've engaged with the Canadian GEO Secretariat know Carla. She is the Canadian GEO Secretariat. But what she's worked at over the last few years is making all of those connections with people in Canada who are connected to GEO in some way, even interested in GEO, and bringing them all together to understand how we contribute to learn from each other and to make sure that we are a little more coordinated in our approach to GEO. So with that, we've established the Canadian GEO community, and really through regular communication, we've grown the awareness of GEO. Carla sends out newsletters every month or so to keep our GEO community informed of GEO events and activities, and to share information. We have regular GEO meetings, GEO community meetings, telecoms throughout the year, and it's really changed the landscape for GEO in Canada. So now when we're asked what the value of GEO is for Canada, we have a much better answer, and I'll go through some of that in the presentation. If we go to the next slide. We are, and so this is some of the information that we kind of learned over the last 3 years. So we contribute to the GEO Work Program. We've got a prime representative on the GEO Work Program from the Canadian Space Agency, and 2 other representatives, alternates from my Department of Environment and Climate Change Canada and Agriculture Canada. We have become very involved in AmeriGeo, which has been a really great thing, largely from a coordination perspective. Carla participates that way, but we've also established a lot of really great collaborations there. I'll talk about some of those a bit later as well. We have really focused on Canadian industry involvement in GEO and recognizing the benefits that involvement in GEO can bring to our private sector. We have encouraged GEO associate memberships for our Canadian industry, and in Australia, we did have one Canadian company, PCI Geomatics, that obtained a GEO associate membership, but we're working towards more of those as well. We're involved in many of the GEO initiatives and activities and have co-chair roles on the flagship GeoGlam, GeoBon, and the GEO for Mercury initiative. And when you look at the priorities for GEO and you align those or cross those with Canadian priorities, Government of Canada priorities, they really align very well. So it's not a surprise that we should be involved in GEO and leveraging Earth observation for all of these priorities. In Canada, I'll talk about it now. In Canada, in the last few years, in parallel to working on our GEO community, we've also been working on a national satellite Earth observation strategy, also led by David Harper from Environment and Climate Change Canada, along with 2 other of our main Earth observation departments, our Department of Natural Resources and the Canadian Space Agency. And in February of this year, 2022, we released our national satellite Earth observation strategy. It's available online. If you Google Canada National Earth Observation Strategy, you'll find the PDF very easily. And you'll see that again, it's very much pulls out these major priorities that we feel that Earth observation can contribute to. We'll go to the next slide. So we have David Harper as the GEO principal. We've got an alternate GEO principal at the Canadian Space Agency, Eric LaLiberté. And then an equally sized box on the slide says Canadian Geosecretariat, but I remind you that that's one person in Canada. And then we've got our program board members. So that's the basic structure. We link to about 75 members of our Canadian GEO community. It's growing every week, I would say. And then ensuring that we have that strong connection to AmeriGeo as well as the International Geosecretariat. And that's really the role of our Canadian Secretariat, is to make all of those important connections. Next slide. So we've, going back to the question of what do we get out of GEO, I think that we, in terms of what Canada gets out of GEO, the benefits of GEO are huge. But I think that through our coordination activities, we've really found that we feel that we're making much bigger contributions to GEO than we did before. So we are very actively sharing our Canadian innovations and expertise and data, of course, large proponents of free and open data, and working to make all of our data as available as possible to the GEO community as well as others. We contribute financially to the GEO Trust Fund as well as to GeoGlam Fund. And really making those connections for our Canadian industry has been critically important, both within Canada and for our partners internationally. The benefits have been huge in terms of accessing the international expertise that we have in the GEO international community. Honestly, there are many in Canada that didn't know about GEO just 5 years ago and have benefited greatly from it since just from that awareness piece and to being tied into the community, influencing the international best practices through our connections with GEO and accessing the really wealth of knowledge that's available. But really, I would say that David Harper's vision for the Canadian GEO has largely been focused on private sector, both in terms of showcasing what our Canadian private sector can do, as well as making those connections for private sector and public sector. So we heard yesterday about public-private partnerships, and that really fits well with the model for how Canada wants to contribute to GEO. Next slide. On that same line, back in when we used to, the last time we got together in person at GEO Week in Canberra in 2019, we really put a lot of energy into building a strong Canadian delegation for GEO Week 2019. And we brought 11 Canadian companies with us to that event and offered a Canadian exhibition booth at the event for our industry to network and use throughout the event. And I think it was a very big success. The Canadian Space Agency was involved in terms of organizing a trade mission for our companies that came to the event. And to my right here is Arnold Huffin, who is one of those Canadian industry participants who was with us in Canberra and happy to be with us in Ghana. So I'm gonna offer for everybody to talk to Arnold about the experience of the private sector in Canada and how that has changed with David Harper's leadership on GEO. I think I might have one more slide, or that may be it. I think, oh yes, I did want to touch again on the National Earth Observation Strategy in Canada and the shift that has been in Canada. So personally, I've been working in Earth observation in Canada for 25 years, and it's only in the last 3 years that I've seen the coordination across the whole country on Earth observation to come together to put together this national strategy. And that involved bringing 21 government departments together at very senior levels to talk about what we want to do with Earth observation. In Canada, you'll probably be aware that a lot of our energy on Earth observation has been in the RadarSat program for 30 or more years through RadarSat 1, RadarSat 2, and our RadarSat Constellation mission. But the way that has evolved has really been all about RadarSat, and it's been project to project without putting the investments that are required in the mid and downstream. So that's been a realization over the last few years that we really need to look at the full value chain of Earth observation. So not only focusing on what we want to do in the upstream around RadarSat or other missions, which we're hoping to diversify a little bit beyond C-band SAR, and then also investing in what we're proposing as Digital Earth Canada, a platform for us to leverage all the data that's available. That's in very early stages of discussion, but it's really through this strategy that provides that policy cover that we need to talk to the government about Earth observation and to seek investments in Earth observation. And it's been very successful. This year we have seen investments, and as we go forward with an investment roadmap, I think we'll find that it's really been valuable to organize ourselves in this way, and in the same way we're doing a link to GEO, because international is really a pillar of our satellite Earth observation strategy, and GEO is a key component of that. So I'll leave it at that. I think I have one slide on key takeaways, and what I really want to say there is that when we talk about challenges over the last 4 years, it has been a challenge for Canada to truly understand what GEO means for us in terms of what we get out of participating and what we can give to the international GEO community. And we're still working through that, but have made great strides in that in the last few years. We are small, you know, I would say if Carla was here, she would tell you how challenging it is to really understand the GEO participation across the whole country and bring all those right players together. It seems every week we're finding out some other Canadian is involved in a GEO initiative that we didn't know anything about. So that has been a challenge that we're working through. But ultimately, we see a great value in GEO, and our organization over the last few years in Canada has enabled our participation that we will continue to move forward into GEO Week 2023, planning for a strong delegation there as well. You know, we've already started talking to our private sector about that. So we have high hopes for that, but I will leave it at that. Thank you. Who's next? Thank you, Shannon. I really appreciate that. And thank you for holding the mic. Then passing it to Melanie. You have to pass it around the table there. You see, yeah, if everyone just pass that mic around, we're a little compact in here, so we're all just helping each other. That's what GEO is all about. All right. So, Melanie, welcome and take it away.
Let's go back a slide. Sorry. Thank you. I just wanted to keep my intro slide up so I can also introduce Svetlana, who's sitting next to me, who actually is one of the key parts of our National GEO experience. And I'm going to describe to you this morning, we have a joint UK GEO CEOS office, and that's the structure that we have, and that's what my presentation is going to be on. So I'm hoping that Svetlana is also going to contribute when we get to the panel discussions, as she really is the engine of how this goes forward, I think, similar to your secretariat. Yes, exactly. So next slide, please. So we have established a joint UK GEO CEOS office, which kind of recognises that very often there's a lot of players working with both organisations. So it's been jointly established by Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, which is where I'm based, and we hold the UK principal to GEO, with the National Centre for Earth Observation, which kind of brings together all of the researchers within the UK, focusing on Earth observation, and then the UK Space Agency, which is the UK principal to CEOS. So it's a tripartite approach, and it's supported by the Natural Environment Research Council through a national public good funding. So this is also sort of how we're seeing GEO as well, and part of that value for money is where it's coming from. So it's been interesting coming third, having listened to 2 presentations where I can be nodding quite a lot. Next slide, please. So why did we opt to take a joint office approach? And so it's that value of a coordinated approach to the 2 organisations. And it also mirrors, to a certain extent, there is a global coordination mechanism between GEO and CEOS. So we're mirroring that. And it allows us to pool resources between the 3 organisations that are involved to actually have a more cost-effective and efficient management of our engagement with GEO and CEOS. And we believe it gives us the potential to deliver more visible and concrete contributions, especially in supporting our global initiatives by bringing the 2 streams together. Next slide. So it's, as I say, it brings together the technical and policy expertise of the partners. So NCEO, National Centre for Earth Observation, provides the UK with its core expertise in Earth observation, so the science, data sets, merging techniques, and it underpins the UK's Earth system research and also our contribution to international environmental science. UKSA looks at the upstream, championing the power of space to inspire people, greener, smarter pollutions, and supporting a sustainable future with Earth observation. And then DEFRA is actually very much a key user of Earth observations. We use so much of it in our policy development, decision-making, implementation and monitoring, and that's becoming more and more apparent, especially with more targeted goals of the various multilateral environmental agreements. So this is why these three coming together really takes us from upstream through to the downstream use. Next slide, please. And so this is a sort of schematic of how this works. And so we have the UK CEOS office, you can see sitting in the middle, where we have an office director who is actually the director of the National Centre on Earth Observation, John Remedios. I think does send his apologies, he couldn't join us here this week. And then Svetlana with me is the office manager there, and then it engages with the two principals, to GEO and CEOS, with the GEO principal, as said, sitting with DEFRA. He is our Deputy Chief Scientific Advisor. And then from UKSA, the CEOS principal also sits there, but represented by Beth Greenaway from the Earth Observations in UK Space Agency. And so through this group, we engage with a lot of UK community groups looking at different interests which are relevant to CEOS and GEO. So this all feeds in together through the UK GEO CEOS office, so that we have that coordination mechanism across how we're engaging with GEO and with CEOS. Next slide, please. We've had a few things that coming together has really enabled us to deliver some things that we couldn't have all done individually. And I think that's one of the points of what I was trying to get by having this combined approach. We've been able to come together. We COP26 sort of this time last year. We were very lucky to be there, and we were able to deliver on a presidency perspective on Earth Information Day. And we actually engaged very strongly with the climate change team at GEO, with Sarah, and also Stephen was part of our panel there. We were also able to bring together our Space for Climate initiative, which is a project under UKSA, or a group under UKSA, and they were actually in the green zone for 2 weeks. And they were demonstrating various case studies and projects that have been undertaken by UK GEO community and other researchers. So that was getting that out into the space at COP26. And then one of the areas that the UK very much is engaging with is looking at forests and carbon storage in forests. So this was another of the big side events that we were able to have there, bringing together that community that we have. Next slide, please. And then we also presented this last week with everybody online, and it's so wonderful to actually be in a room with everybody. I don't know how many of your faces are up on that screen at the moment, but we were able to actually have a reflection and consideration of the next steps. And I think we're now, as we're building up to COP27, very much looking at that role of Earth observation in taking us forward on some of those agreements. And it's going to be interesting to see what comes out in the next 2 weeks out of Sharm el-Sheikh. Next slide, please. So we do, as the flagged, climate action is one of the priority areas for us coming out of the office. And this links again with how both GEO and CEOS are engaging with UNFCCC, especially looking at how we can contribute to the global stock take and the AFLU roadmap. And I said the forest component is one of those where we're very heavily engaged and looking at validation protocols in situ networks. And so this is quite a big piece that NCEO is working on, which is a dashboard for forest carbon and biomass harmonization. So this is, then say, bringing together everybody and contributing to the international approaches. Next slide, please. So our international coordination builds on what we're doing nationally, and then looking at how we can use that to support international work. So we have a lot of UK funded programs which are international, such as we have it's now come to a close, but the UKSA International Partnerships Programme, which had a lot of work, it had some work in Fiji and looking at disaster risk reduction and programs like that. A lot of the funds coming from NERC. We also have climate change funds. We have an Earth Observation Centre of Excellence, which undertakes research into new projects that could benefit, and this is under DEFRA, so specifically to our policy areas. And so we're looking at how to improve UK systems and policies, and looking at the science that we have and the verification work we do, and how that can support the global approach to getting those standards in place. Looking at future EO systems and the design, which has a benefit to all, including the UK. So trying to look at that value for money, where is it coming back to us? So we're contributing outward, but also getting those benefits, being in a community, coming back to the UK, and where we can actually contribute to the greater good through the work that we're doing. Next slide, please. So looking ahead of what we've got planned, we do have a lot of work ongoing with numerous GEO program areas, like the other presenters. We also have an active membership on the GEO program board, and we've actually taken an approach there that we have someone from the academic community, someone from the research community, and actually someone from the private sector. So we've done that to get that engagement with private sector. So that's been something that we've done just recently with our most recent membership vote for that. We've also, as well as actively engaging, and I've got some of the colleagues here who are on some of the working groups, we also have contributions going to the Trust Fund and also GeoGlam, so very much mirroring Canada, recognising those food security activities. And one of the areas that we're very interested and focused on is that standards data and trustability, and that's another one that brings together the CalVal working group and GEO Knowledge Hub, so bringing together those and making sure that we're coordinating across how our GEO community is engaging. Looking forwards, we would very much welcome the GEO Equality, Diversity and Inclusion statement that came out last year, and looking to make sure that that's continued and is implemented. GEO trees for biomass and forests, looking to see how that's going to evolve and where it's going. Extending our work on GeoGlam and looking at how GeoGlows connects with that. So that's something that we see of great interest. Biodiversity, another one where GEO and CEOS are coming together very much, and that's sort of slightly new area. And so again, by having that connection between our approaches with the two organizations, we can ensure that we have coordination. And of course, new oceans dialogue coming in at UNFCCC and seeing how that goes. And then finally, I think the methane and forest biomass work. And again, that's looking at CEOS, but coming to GEO. Next slide, please. And I think that is my final slide. Yes. So really just in conclusion, it's the joint office brings together the two communities that we have in the UK, providing strength in the collective voice, enabling the engagement and supporting sound science. I think one of the things that I haven't focused on this, but you did ask us to look at, is where the challenges were. And I think that is the depth of the two communities. And again, I was nodding at that, you know, you find people working on GEO programs that you weren't aware were. So it's how do we engage that? And also a more effective coordination across government departments as well to bring that in. And that's why I was very interested with the US approach. So I think there's always things to learn and to strengthen, but I think it's all sort of how to bring everything together in the most efficient way. So thank you very much.
So much. I think that it's great to hear some of the similarities and some of the differences as well. So I think that they were loading a video. Are we good? Not yet? Not yet. Okay, so we're getting tech, like you can see me in earnest, like communicating. So what we're going to do is we're going to just take a moment now while they're finishing getting the video loaded up to just maybe ask a question or two that might have come to your mind as you're listening to these first three presentations. So I'll open the floor and we'll pass the mic depending on which is most convenient Ernest got it for that part of the room. I've got it for this part of the room. Anyone have a question for US or for Canada or for UK based on what you just heard?
This is a question to anyone of the three presenters. How do you improve and sustain in situ Earth observations within your national geo?
All right, who needs a mic? I got to pass it.
In our national plan for civil Earth observations and in our inventory and in our assessment of use, all of our stream gauging network is in there. Our pollutants in situ is a big role. And so the principal is the director of NOAA, Rick Spinrad. So he's more of the satellite and oceans. And then our alternate principal to GEO is the director of the USGS, who's here with us. And we do a lot of the ground-based measurements. So there is a strong emphasis on both. And, you know, following up from Canberra, having GEO more focused on in situ, that was one of the objectives that came out of the declaration, Karsten, that you worked on. And have we achieved that? I don't think we've made as much progress as we would hope. Carla, here, I'll call you Carla.
Yeah, you can call me Carla. She does all the work. Yeah, it's a good point. I focused on satellite Earth observation because that is where our strategy came out this year. At the same time, David Harper is the Director General of the Monitoring and Data Services Directorate at the Meteorological Service of Canada, responsible for all the ground-based network and our water survey of Canada. So all of the water and land and atmospheric data at the Meteorological Service. And we've recognized the disconnect of bringing those two worlds together, and that's really part of the focus of Digital Earth Canada that we're looking towards to create a sandbox, if you will, for industry and academia and government to really bring all of that data together. I would say that there is an element of in situ data that's missing there, and that's really in our research, in our science organizations who are out doing field work all of the time and collecting data. And that to me is the challenge, is to bring in that data into the mix. But it's something we're aware of and working towards.
Yeah, I think definitely I would echo it remains a challenge. I think it's one that everyone is very aware of and how we bring it together. And we're looking very much, and this is where it does link with that CEOS GEO connectivity and the CalVal work that's happening within CEOS, and then work we're doing also, and I can speak very much from a department level rather than necessarily our UK GEO as a whole, is looking at some calibration and validation work amongst the in situ sensors, because again, there's so many there that are going on, and where is everyone obtaining their data, and how are we sure that it is all coming together in a trustable data source? So it's still a big task, but I know is one of those priorities that we had on the slides that we're looking forward to continuing work.
I hear we're ready. Oh, go ahead. You want to wait? You're all right. All right. Hold your questions. Do write them down. I hope you have time for questions. But I guess we'll go ahead and get to the next presentation. So this is our Chinese colleague.
My presentation contains 3 parts: structure, strategy, and showcase. China has been actively participating in GEO activities together with other international partners, applying Earth observations to tackle global challenges. At present, China serves as one of GEO co-chair, representing Asian and Oceania caucus on the developing countries. Vice Minister of Most, Dr. Zhang Guanjun, took over the responsibility of GEO China co-chair since 2021. In 2011, approved by the State Council of China, Most was authorized to represent China to participate in GEO activities. As the Ministry-in-Chief, Most organized on the coordinated China GEO community to engage in GEO, since as observations are related to various areas covering many ministries and institutions. In order to better promote China's participation in GEO, led by Most, national coordination mechanism was established to collect Earth observation needs on the achievement among 16 domestic ministries and organizations. The overall management on the coordination is supported by GEO China Secretariat, which is located in National Remote Sensing Center of Most. An ambitious goal could not be achieved without concrete on the feasible strategies. From a long-term perspective, we elect China's plan for implementing GEOs 2016 to 2025 on a 10-year scale, which formulates National GEOs implementation plan on the includes model examples of designing and building National GEOs from a medium-term perspective. We implement China GEO Development Plan 2021 to 2025 on a 5-year scales. Blueprinting the strategic layout of China GEO Technology Corporation from a short-term perspective, we carry out annual plan, cracking down the overall goal into 9 objectives from global, regional, and local aspects. Sticking to the strategic plan on the leveraging our national coordination mechanism, integrating ministries and the institutions with different aspects of EO capabilities, we have realized many remarkable results with joint efforts of the GEO community. Established in 2014, China GEOs Data Sharing Network is the core work of China GEO National Coordination Network. It has achieved the connectivity of national public state lines, main commercial state lines on the overseas high-quality remote sensing data center, as well as domestic and international EO data mutual sharing. The network provides users with a one-stop data access service. Establish a Chinese brand in international EO data sharing. Through this network, China has provided more than 5 million satellite data to GEO in over 10 years. You could visit this website for more information. In this September, with the great support of GEO Secretariat of the co-chairs, GEO China Secretariat organized the first China GEO conference. Participants from the public and the private sector, academia, and the youth gathered, discussed on the exchanged ideas about how to utilize Earth observation application through GEO to enjoy tackle global challenges and to make great contributions to the international community. The European Commission, South Africa, the United States co-chairs and the GEO Secretariat directs sent a video speech to the conference, recognizing and encouraging China GEO community to involve deeper in GEO. China has entered the forefront of Earth observation and have strong advantages in Earth observation infrastructure, data, and technologies. How to promote, reuse, innovate, and expand EO application is the current director of GEO. To this end, China initiated the collection and the compilation of greater practice of Earth observation in China, a compendium. The compendium collect 100 outstanding application case and summarize the experience on the Earth of China EO application, covering climate change, disaster risk reduction, food safety, and so on. Established in 2016, collaborative network on disaster data response is responsible for coordinating the provision of Chinese high resolution satellite data on the disaster analysis products to disaster affected countries. By October 2022, the CDDR mechanism had provided information services to cope with 35 major disaster emergency events, such as earthquakes, volcanoes, floods in 25 countries. The CDDR has been listed as one of the world's top 9 disaster data contributors by GEO. The examples above could never be achieved without synergizing various EO force on a national scale. At the same time, we could not harness the synergy without an effective and comprehensive national coordination mechanism. A national GEO integrate with coordination mechanism could unite domestic GEO community and promote alliance to participate in international GEO activities. China will always be willing to share to global GEO partners its experience in building national GEO and the coordination mechanism. That is all for my presentation. Thank you for your attention and wish you a fruitful GEO week.
That was really interesting to hear the similarities and the differences in China's approach. I really appreciate that they took the time to make the video, even though they couldn't be here. So if we can get to the next presentation. One of the common threads I'm hearing is it's the surprise of, oh, you're working on GEO? I didn't know you were doing that. Or you're part of CEOs? I didn't know you're doing that. And so I think, that's an interesting thing that I'm reflecting. is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? How do we communicate with each other? And so I've heard emails, I've heard newsletters, we just heard a national conference. And so maybe I'll just have you all think about that as we introduce the next presentation of best practices of helping our community grow and know about each other. All right, Lulu, you're next.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Good morning, everyone. It's truly a pleasure to be here. I'm just going to give a quick overview of what we do at SAGEO and who we are. And just as a way of introduction, we have, SAGEO was established in 2011. And it has just been recently established. And I think it's something to do with some of the challenges that you would actually get, especially in running voluntary sort of structures like SAGEO at a national level. So it has been, I think, placed in different departments, but of course, for us, we have just received it recently, I mean, within a year or two. So what you're going to get here is just a quick overview of course, in terms of the planning and what we aim to achieve, and you know, and some of the activities on the ground. Next slide, please. So SAGEO is a national coordination framework for Earth observations in South Africa, and I think, as we've heard from many other speakers, it's so essential that nationally we have that coordination amongst the different parties, different members, so that we have this comprehensive, holistic approach and participation in GEO as well. It is fully supported by the South African government, and it is implemented through the National Earth Observations and Space Secretariat as part of that office. But this is also an initiative of the Department of Science and Innovation. And of course, we are working with other government departments in terms of, you know, getting involved in the work. And I think, as we are aware, this is the same department as well that has established and pushed for the AfriGeo initiative that is currently within the RCMRD. They are also the SA, they are also represented at ESCOM, meaning representing the Africa Caucus. We are also participating at the program board of GEO and various initiatives. Basically, the main aim, like the others, is to ensure that we maximize our investments to minimize any overlaps, overlaps in implementation nationally, because through coordination we can achieve a lot. And ensuring as well that we foster application development that meet the societal needs. So focusing on the priorities in South Africa as well. It is in line with GEO and GEOs. We have a number of South African organizations that are participating in the work program in different, I think, structures of GEO over the years. It's also a network for sharing reusable knowledge. It is voluntary and flexible in terms of participation. So even though we get all the partners and the members, you know, to register and participate, and we put all of these partnerships and collaborations, but really there's nothing, because it is voluntary, you know, so everybody participates, you know, because of the benefits and the value they get out of the work that we do. So what we are focusing on is to ensure that whilst we are globally connected through all these programs we are positioning, but we are also focusing on our local priorities, national priorities, because it's quite key that, you know, as we present ourselves, we are able to also take up on the areas where we feel that there is most need for interventions locally. Next slide, please. So what we do it's sort of creating that bridge dialogue between the EO data and information generators and users, because we've seen over the years that there's sort of a disconnect and lack of, communication in terms of, these groupings. We also fostering, creation of synergies to ensure that there's duplication of efforts, and by doing that, we ensure that we identify community-wide problems, not a specific problem for a specific individual, specific organization, but what impacts on everybody as a whole, so that we can identify what are the challenges and propose some of the solutions. So meaning collectively, we develop, once a challenge has been identified, what is the problem, where is the problem, we sort of develop, a work plan and an approach to intervene in those problems. Also, a stronger focus is on identifying and developing user needs. The needs of the users, even the potential users of the data and information, and developing the requirements. We've already have a lot of, requirements that have been developed over the years. So it's not only identifying, it's also building on what is there that has been developed and then seeing where the gaps are. We are also putting a lot of effort in terms of advocating for the uptake of the EO in decision making, especially, ensuring that we are promoting access to data. And there's already, a lot of activities that we do around that. We also provide opportunities for building EO capacity, be it at an individual level, organizational level, because we believe that it is quite critical that we provide these opportunities, including, utilizing the already available opportunities that GEO is providing, through the Knowledge Hub and others, to ensure that there's training at a local level and there's wider dissemination of the value and benefits of what GEO does. And of course, there's a lot of communication and awareness on the value of integrated use of Earth observations and the benefits as well, because if we do not communicate that message on the value, then we are not going to get, the necessary, acknowledgement and participation in our program. Next slide, please. These are some of the priorities that have been identified, in agriculture and food security, climate action, circular economy and natural resources management, human settlements, and data and infrastructure, because, of course, we focused on the thematic areas and also ensuring that we have the necessary infrastructure, even though we already have, so currently we already have existing national infrastructures of government from, a number of them, but what we have done is, we try to ensure that we identify what exists, where it exists, make sure that it's, linked in our data and information portal, and make it accessible as well. Next slide, please. So these are some of the implementation activities on a high level. So we focus on coordination, especially the EO community, to ensure that we have action plans, the relevant platforms, support platforms for information and data, even for resource, for management of the resources as well. We have COP structures which we've launched already in January this year to support the response to national and continental priorities, feeding into AfriGeo, as well as ensuring that they also participate in the grouping Earth observations as well. So there are a number of priorities, of other focus areas, challenges that have been identified as well in food security, access to water, sanitation, and so on. So the other, important aspect, because if you are running what you call a voluntary coordination structure, is is collaboration, especially with key government departments at all levels, from national departments to local departments at municipality level, where the planning, is being undertaken. Private industry, research, and non-governmental organization, so that we ensure that they participate in the communities of practice and are able to make available the data to support any initiatives that would benefit the community. The other aspect is engagement, because we have to engage with all the diverse community of Earth observation users, so that we have a better and deeper understanding of the landscape, the user needs, and the relevant available products and services. Because often, that's where we can be able to see where there's duplication of efforts, where we are able to identify, and we've even undertaken a process where we actually have created the database, so that we really have an overview of what's available locally. And the other aspect, of course, I know funding is always a challenge, is of course facilitating the resourcing through collaborative efforts, even though there is support at national government level, because South Africa is committed in terms of Earth observation efforts, and we actually also contribute to the GEO Trust Fund as well. So it's collaboration to ensure that some of the targeted initiatives that are being identified and that come out of these communities of practice, that they are actually supported. So when there's a challenge, at least we have to have a way that that activity is supported. Next slide, please. So some of the outputs, what we've done so far, as I said, we have just recently launched in January communities of practice in various societal benefit areas, and these are linked to AfriGeo, AfriGeo and AfriGeo's COPs as well, and also some of them are linked to the Group on Earth Observation web program. We have also, focused on establishment of platforms and tools, because, to support the work, for people to find value and benefit, you have to establish that communication engagement, or that mechanism where they can be able to interact and engage. So we have an integrated platform which is seeking to achieve, I think, different objectives, making sure that there's information, there's also the community is able to network. We also, just to keep the, because what we've realized in the past, like I said, now we're at a resuscitation stage, is that, you would run the things, there'll be an excitement, and then all of a sudden, there'll be challenges to pull the things together. So we are trying very hard to put some of the social aspects, the networking aspects, so that the community stays connected as well. We are contributing towards both existing and new development of new user requirements by identifying gaps and proposing solutions, as well as towards existing national special data infrastructures. We are in a process right now of developing a South African Earth observation science portal as well, which is more of an overarching system where all of these systems are going to be made discoverable and accessible through. And lastly, of course, we believe that it's important to always build capacity, because without the capacity and the knowledge, it's important that there's continuous sharing of knowledge and expertise, and ensuring that there's involvement of youth, women, and the private sector, especially the small and medium enterprises. Next slide, please. So these are some of what we expect to achieve. Enhanced capacity in South Africa to access, use, and manage the data and information. We also, of course, want to minimize duplication of efforts, especially if you don't know what the right hand is doing, then there is always, a potential for some of the activities, for some of the programs to be duplicated. We want to ensure that the Earth observation data is described, preserved properly, discoverable, and accessible automatically through the national platforms. So as much as we have all of these national platforms, we want to make sure that they are also accessible, they are interoperable, and discoverable through the system that is currently under development by our National Space Agency. And we want to ensure that there's diverse participation, like I mentioned, and of course, ultimately, we want to make progress towards sustainable development goals. Next slide, please. So I have a short video. It's a little bit longer because I think it's 5 minutes. That actually okay, so I think we can leave the video just because of time, but it just shows some of the collaborators that we have and some of the stakeholders and users of some of some of our partners. So thank you so much for your time and your patience. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Lulu, and I apologize that we can't show the video. We only have 9 minutes left because of our multiple rooms changing, and we definitely need to hear from Dr. Professor Osai. So let's see, is there a microphone on that side? Yeah, can you pass that to him? And if you can bring up the slides. And then we'll go ahead and ask for your presentation. And while the session is supposed to officially end in 8 minutes, if you would like to stay, the next, we want coffee break, and the next meeting starts at 11. So maybe we'll stay for till 10:45 if you're interested. If you're not, then it's going to be a challenge to get out of here. So we'll make sure we leave a little time for that too. Okay, Professor Osai, go ahead. Oh, that's not his presentation.
Maybe I will start by saying I really appreciate this invitation for Ghana to be part of this. So we are just beginning with the GEO Secretariat. Sure. Supporting how to organize our organization. Yeah.
Yes, and I was thinking for sure we need a Ghana GEO photo.
Yeah.
So all of you people from Ghana, please.
Yes, they are here.
Afterwards, because you have a great group here. It's exciting to see. So, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
No?
No, maybe I can start with, okay.
After everything, we will all take a group.
Okay. Okay, so we have a Ghana GEO photo to take, and then we have all of us. So don't leave before you get your picture taken. Thank you. All right.
All right. Maybe I can just, because of time, maybe I can.
Go ahead and start. If you know what you want to say, please. I apologize that we're getting it there.
Ghana has really recently reignited our efforts to include ourselves in the international programs in space science and technology. I'm sure you've heard about the Chase University sending a satellite into space, and resources have been able to install a civil station, and space science and technology is having a co-location agreement with a US-based organization. And with all these efforts, we noticed that the is gradually coming up to speed with observation research. And of course, you've heard of SSGs who have been in the system for a while. I think all those who are here from Ghana have had some service with SSGs over the other day, provide very good service. Unfortunately, our issue is the fact that the science were not coming together as a group. So you can was quickly welcomed by the Ministry of Environment, Science, Technology, and Education. Therefore, we decided to come together and work as a group. What government noticed was when government noticed this operation in silence, the next slide, please. They keep quickly organized and formed the Ghana Space Science and Technology Institute, which is supposed to all space activities in the country. And with this move to framework for the basic infrastructure to be developed once with the Space Agency. And formation of the Ghana Space Agency, the next slide, please. 10 years after the establishment of the Ghana Space Science and Technology Institute, the Ghana Space Policy was approved somewhere last year. And this year we have been given the, early this year, sorry. And then, sorry, that was 2020, but early this year we got the information that we have to get the Space Science Space Agency formed within a year. 2023, the Ghana Space Agency has to be provide guidance for the public and private sector, and also promote coordination of all space programs and manage the space programs, space science and technology programs in the country. Next slide, please. Some of the key highlights of the Ghana space policy to promote a well-coordinated and space science and technology program in the country, also develop and maintain the required human capacity space science and technology, and also build the national space infrastructure for education, research, and its application. We are also supposed to promote research and development in space science and technology. Commercialize the space technologies are indicated in advance and identify that and then we come to a commercial agreement with executives. Sure, several others will also promote local and international cooperation with space science and technology. We are also supposed to institute appropriate legal and regulatory framework for space science and technology in the country. So promote the citizens' interest in space science and technology. Most often when we talk about space science and technology, their mind quickly goes to we are shooting rockets into space when solve our national problems. Why are we shooting people into space? Not knowing that even the national problems have to be solved with space science and technology activities. Next slide, please. So with the formation of the Ghana Space Science and Technology Institute, we have already started with our collaborators. So pollution, climate change, yield measurement, and then we also have the urban planning and next slide, please. Yeah, we are also having a training across the country where we involve schools, tertiary institutions, and then the secondary schools, and also on the right side is our telescope, which is being used for radio astronomy activities, and this has also been which attracts people to come and learn more about space science, and that is when we introduce the other elements of space science to them. Next slide, please. Yes. Have been working with these stakeholders, and we will pull all of them together. Starting from Ministry of Communication, almost all the ministries, through the research institutions, to the various agencies, and even other agencies will also join us when we start working. So looking at these scientific organizations, that is the our colleagues who are here from the Institution of Geosciences, and then also that of Chemistry, and others will also come. As a group. Next slide, please. Yeah. And working as a group, we are hoping to focus on these thematic areas, that is weather and climate, poverty reduction, sustainable resources and disaster management, security, we have climate change, water resource management, and SSTI may not have the full capability of these areas, and therefore we are hoping to adopt a strategy where coordinators from various agencies who are very experienced in these agencies, but then all working together as a group to be able to solve problems. And when we have the leader in one of these organizations, the others now come on board to support them. Working together to share ideas and share the data so far. Yes, with the formation of the National GEOs existing activities and even make it more to share assets and initiatives to enhance the activities of activity outputs for national development. We also facilitate linkages among the local government authorities and the policy makers. In this country, the local government authorities are the developers of the country. If you do anything without them, set up to fail. Something from South Africa that they work on advocacy, which means that we share the working train people in the local. We have all the sectors there. We have Ministry of Education, so we're able to convince the local government authorities. I'm sure we will be able to what do you call it, seen in the system. Now we also provide services to the private sector companies who require observation data. We also provide resources to citizens who want information about civil quality. So across the country. Next slide, please. Yes, with the benefits of GEO, I think when we work together, we will have one voice. And therefore, when we approach any government agency, it's not in the GSSTI approaching the government agency. Resources for National GEO, which is a stronger force, and then being so we can also engage the international community together as one. Once we meet them, we can the international community, not any people channels to talk about all the community interests. We work together as one. We take information from solutions and suggestions to the agency. We also have a focal point for the international community, and the GEO Secretariat can appreciate our efforts and then work together with us. We also jointly seek funding so we can leverage on other institutions' strength as indicated in next slide, please. So these are some of the key areas because of time. I will not go through. These are some of the answers we shall be questions we shall be providing answers to in case of national development, of climate, disaster management, forestry, weather, resources. And recently, when we had the visit of the Parliamentary Select Committee, Science, Technology, and Innovation, surprisingly, they were to Earth observation data. They asked a lot of questions, and before they left, I'm sure we were saying that Earth observation is the way to go in solving national problems. They to come back to support this year. I'm hoping that will go higher so that we can provide necessary information for them to maybe have a decision for decision making in this country. So this is really being the country. The National GEO, I am sure we will be able to do a lot more.
very much. That was very great. All right, so we have 8 minutes for questions and 2 minutes for 2 photos. We can do it, yeah? Yeah, we might trip over chairs, but we can do it. We can do it. So I will come back to you because you had a question at the break and didn't get a chance. So if you'd like to pass the microphone down that way, we will just share the microphone. Oh, and I'll pass it that you can do the second question.
Quick transmission in this presidency. So we do not have a national GEO, and this has been very informative for me. And it gives us a good basis for which to take the conversation back home. And I liked what the different presentation from the US, Canada, UK, and sister from Africa. Much of the questions have been answered by the 2 presentations that have been done by Ghana and South Africa in terms of, I wanted to ask the how do you get started in terms of establishing the GEO? And then another question, especially for the well-established GEO, how do you handle data? How do you handle the different stakeholders? I noticed UK has 3, US indicated you have 13 key players. It was not very clear from Canada how many the different players who are helping coordinate GEO. How do you manage those players, and why 3, why 13? What works best, and what are some of the lessons that we need to learn as we develop our GEO within the country, especially for developing countries? Thank you.
I was going to, if we can do a double answer, I think one of the points I just wanted to raise top the presentation we have on the UK GEOs office. We have the 3 stakeholders there, but they're the partner organisations in actually running that office. And then we do have our stakeholder groupings underneath, which would be our GEO stakeholders. And we here in the room, we've got Ordnance Survey, who are a very strong player from the UK in looking at how national mapping is contributing to work of GEO, and also the other government departments who are working on the climate change working group, for example, my colleague from the business, energy and industrial strategy department. So we do have a number of stakeholders sort of underneath, but we've kept sort of, if you like, the coordination body, because it's connecting GEO and CEOS, we've kept that sort of more lean, if you like, but then it filters down into a wider stakeholder setting. But I think some of the other questions, I think Svetlana.
I would only like to emphasize that the community is important, and the thing that the office does is actually communicates with the community from the bottom up, so to say. That's the important bit. So we have our representatives, or sometimes we don't know that they are actually representatives, but they are working for GEO, and we try to organize them. We try to bring them together. We set up UK GEO meetings. Then we have definitely, like in Canada, this extensive email list where we would communicate all the information to our community. So that's what's important, the communication with the community and the bottom-up approach from people who are actually interested in and working in GEO. Does that answer?
Okay, thank you. So I think just to congratulate something which is quite illustrate the step in the duplication of effort in throughout the presentation. I think my is very much interested to your topic on existing IP sensing software, that inventory software. It's 2006. It hasn't been updated. It's quite stable. It's quite systems. And if you feel involved, maybe I don't know, just if you can make that's also if possible, because it's already disturbing that it's not really yeah, thanks for the comment about IPCC and UNFCCC reporting. So I lead on the UK side, reporting greenhouse gas to the secretariats. And so the guidelines is based, is robust, but it's not really developed like changed. Guideline by the IPCC. Then you have the last one. There is actually six guidelines. So it's not really what which the science, when that changes, that is when you need to update the guideline, the IPCC guideline. 20 finance is not still generally accepted. Follow, which is a challenge, but I'll say the guideline is robust, and based on where you are, reporting which you are doing, the reporting is challenging. You can do a tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 approach as you know, and using the software also. It's robust, but then if you have like a particular part which you feel should change, 5 sectors, land use change, industrial process and product use, the waste sector, the energy sector. So those sectors are there to guide you. If you're in a particular sector which the uncertainty is so high and you're not too happy with a part of the science and you have a very good science-based knowledge backed by peer-reviewed journals, you can actually approach the transparency committee, pointing them to the highest level or the new knowledge and say, we need to accept this new guidance. Let's look at this way. So basically when carbon bonds in oxygen, it's going to produce CO2. That's not going to change. We know that is what we are going to get. So there's no need of changing that next year and changing that next year. The chemistry over combustion still there. The chemistry over a whole lot of the activities which generate CO2, nitrous oxide, methane, the F gases will still remain relevant. But when there is a robust and generally accepted science, then we put that forward for changes through the transparency framework. And once that's generally accepted, it gets like into the next refinement, and then everybody talks about it, and then we take that forward. But we can always talk at length about this. I can tell you how to approach them, how to push your science forward, and it's generally straightforward and open approach, which everybody engage in yearly. Yeah.
Thank you. I just feel like the mic passing is part of the symbolism of GEO collaborating. Oh, now and the table's going to fall and we're going to help each other there too. You got it? You okay? All right. Well, I just want to say thank you. I know that there were sign-up lists. I have 2 here. I know that some more came around, but we may not have got everyone. And if you want to stay in touch, I do want you to add your name. So Ernest, if people didn't get their names, these are full. Do you have another one that has a place? Or actually, people put it in the back, so you can come write your name. If you didn't get your name on the list and would like to stay in touch, please do. Okay, because I think that this is just a beginning of the conversation. There's so many interesting things I could pull on. I think, the idea of the community of practice. How do you make that work well? The idea of a platform to allow for the communication and the collaboration. I don't know about you, but in NASA world, we talk about Slack. How many people know about Slack, right? Actually, how about WhatsApp? WhatsApp? Actually, I think WhatsApp's better myself because everybody has WhatsApp, And so actually, I can tell you that in our trainings at NASA, our RSET training people said, hey, I want to start a WhatsApp. And one of the trainees just started it all, and they're still talking on WhatsApp. And so, I think there's simple ways to keep in touch too. So I do think it would be great for us to continue to share knowledge and share how to help each other. We didn't even get to the question, which was an important one, which is, what is the role of a regional GEO anyway? Right? You heard a little bit about that from AmeriGeo saying that there's value, but it's different in different places. Is there value in getting together with multiple countries? And I would say at least from the US perspective, engaging with AmeriGeo is really valuable to us. But what's even as valuable is when AfriGeo and AmeriGeo and EO and EuroGeo talk to each other and share across the network. Because just as you were pointing out, maybe I could use better guidance and better actually carbon monitoring systems. How do we take those solutions, the 100 use cases we heard about from China? How do we take those solutions, those applications, and apply them right now? The climate change is urgent, important now. So how do we really get them used? That's what I encourage us all to think about as we leave here. But don't leave yet. We have to do a photo, and Ernest is going to tell us what to do. Okay, so follow Ernest. We're going to do an all group photo first, and then a Ghana GEO photo second, and then whatever groups of GEO, National GEO photos, will do them too. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
China's participation at most national population levels was established at